Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Creating a Legacy podcast. I am your host, Thalia, and I am so glad that you have joined us for yet another edition. So, can you believe it? It is episode 5. This time is flying, but no, it has been amazing, and I look forward to hearing everything that you guys tell us. I get a lot of messages outside. Of everyone just giving feedback, and it really means a lot. It really means a lot to hear how you guys are enjoying it. It's definitely motivating for us. It's definitely motivating for us to know that what we're doing is having an impact on you. And yeah, so if you've never been here before, thank you for joining. And if you've been here before you came back, thank you so much for coming back. So if we just take a little step back and we look at what we were talking about last week, so we would have started to look at business names, and in the process of that, we would have explained the whole process of us building the Created by Thalia brand, and by association starting the other sister companies that we have, and some of the things that we went through with coming up with the names and registration, all of those different things. But we want to go into the whole process of branding a little bit more, and as always, we're going to take a look at things not just from, I want to say, an academic point of view, but we also want to look at things biblically, because obviously we are building these businesses from a kingdom perspective. That's what we're all about here at Creating a Legacy podcast. We're all about that whole process of building your kingdom business. And so when we look at the whole concept of identity from a biblical perspective, we see the theme of being set apart. And there's so many scripture verses that touch on this concept. Right now, if I think about Romans chapter 12, verse 2, when it talks about not being conformed to the things of this world. And then there's some other scriptures as well that actually demonstrate the identity that God has given us and what he calls us to. If we look at 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9, and I'm going to read from the New International Version. It says, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." And I'm that is heavy, knowing that you are God's chosen ones, and from a Bible passage like that, you see right off the bat, this is part of your identity. You're chosen, you're royal, you're holy, all of these different things. God's special possession, that's deep. And there's so many different scripture verses where God outlines the identity of his people, the identity of his beloved. And when we take the approach or the perspective of the master creator, and we apply it to the creation of these businesses that are indeed his, we're just the vessels being used to bring these things into being. But when we take that perspective and we apply it to the whole path of entrepreneurship, it's similar. So when you are building your business, you too want to make sure that there is a strong identity that you are conveying through elements of your brand. And I found I was reading an article, and it defines what a brand is pretty well. I like it. For me, I would say a brand is pretty much everything that is tangible and intangible about a business. Is what encompasses the business. But this article on jenniferborn.com, it says a brand is the culmination of every interaction with, experience of, thought about, and marketing practice by a person or a business. So just like I was saying before, it pretty much is everything that encompasses a business. But then there are different elements of that brand that that are there to kind of portray that identity. So that's when you start to get into things like your logo, and you get into things like your color schemes and all those different things. But it all comes from the foundation of the brand itself. So let's look at it a little bit more. So like in this article, like she gave the approach of a brand from the business owner's perspective, and then from the audience's perspective. And so from the business owner's perspective, she has here a brand encompasses the positioning, messaging, and communications, the visual design, the client customer persona, the voice, the marketing and promotions, and the presence of the company. And so you can see how many different facets we have to consider when we're looking at the brand from our perspective, us as the business owner. But then there's also the audience, so your consumer, the people that your business is speaking to. And it's like, okay, so what is their perspective? Like what do they see when they think of the brand? And for them is the reputation of the business that is created by how the business makes them feel, what their experience is like with the business, and what they think of the business. So you see that there's a lot to be considered. The whole concept of the brand, the whole identity is extremely important. It is what the business is. And so from our perspective, we need to make sure that we're doing things to convey the identity properly. And then at the same time, we need to make sure that the audience is getting that message in the same way. When I was in secondary school, so in sixth form to be precise, so that's like, I don't know what grade I would be honestly here. I'm really bad with the grade thing. But you're like 15, 16, 17. Yeah, we would have done this subject called communication studies. And in communication studies, it's just like it sounds. You look at the whole process of communication and you break it down a little further. So you start to look at like the sender and the receiver, and then there's the message, and then there's all these different things that can impact the message, and there's a whole lot. But when I look at the whole concept of branding, it reminds me of that concept of communication. You are the sender and your audience is the receiver, and you want to make sure that you are conveying the right message to your receivers, and you want to make sure that there's also a way that they feel comfortable to also give you back a message as well. And that message is that they partake in your business, so they buy from the business, they support it, they spread the word about it. But if that message, that brand is not being communicated from you properly, then that message is broken down, and it's hard for the audience to now say, well, I am going to support this business, I'm going to buy from this person, because number one, I can't really tell what this business is about. I don't really understand the product. It hasn't been conveyed to me in a way that makes me want to buy it. It doesn't identify with me because it doesn't seem to have similar values that I have. So why am I supporting this business? You know what I mean? And so it is important that the identity of your brand is conveyed effectively. And the way that you can address that, there's so many different ways, because there's so many different facets that encompass the brand. But some of the things that we want to touch on are like the initial big ticket items, like your logo. So there has been like a misconception that logos are your brand, but that's not the case. A logo is like a recognizable visual design element, like a name or a symbol or specific colors or trademark that showcases your business. It's like a visual representation of your business. And when we talk about goals, there's this acronym SMART. There's actually an acronym SMART as well that we can look at where logos are concerned to help us make sure that we tick off all the boxes to make the logo effective for your brand. So this representation would be simple, memorable, appropriate, resizable, and timeless. And let's just go through it one by one. So as simple, this is I cannot reiterate how important it is to have a simple design for your logo. I have encountered logos that have had so many different elements in it that I am like, but what is it about? Like, I am so overwhelmed by all the different elements that I can't really focus on what the business is about. And that right off the bat is a no-no. You do not want that your consumer is so distracted by what is supposed to be a visual representation of your business, because if your visual representation is overwhelming, like what is it to say that other elements of your business aren't going to be overwhelming too? Who's to say that your customer service is not going to be like I'm not saying that because your logo looks a certain way that is what your business is like, but remember, these are some of the first things that people encounter to be like, okay, so what's this about? And right off the bat, if there's some miscommunication there through your branding, like through your logo, like what else? What else am I gonna encounter? I am one that, and it could just be because of my passion for art and things that are visual and things that are creative, but I really look at these things and I'm like I don't know if I really want to, this is weird. Like all of these different things, and we don't want that. that's not why we go through the whole process of entrepreneurship. Like, let's be real. So we want to make sure that the design is simple. I can see right off the bat, hey, this is what this business name is. I might not necessarily, because sometimes it is hard to, especially if a company has so many different things that it's dealing with. Sometimes it's very hard for you to define that business function graphically, but I should be right off the bat able to at least understand that this is your business name. If I can't do that, it's like, what? Like, what was the purpose? Like, what was the purpose of you creating this thing if I can't tell? What? Yeah. So the next one, memorable. I think we all can attest to very strong logos, like remembering what they look like, the impact that they have, and you're like, wow, like this is like, everybody knows a Coca-Cola symbol. Like, you can see that it says Coca-Cola. It's very memorable, and they have also built from that logo with all the other elements of their branding, with their slogans, with their marketing approaches, all these different things to define themselves as a brand. It's the same thing for you. You want to make sure that whatever you use as that visual symbol can be remembered. It should not have all of these different colors and elements and everything that it just becomes overwhelming, but rather like adding to that simpleness, because it is so simple but concrete in its design, I can retain what it is and I know that this says this information. All right, So then let's look at A, appropriate. This goes without saying. I'm not going to, okay, let's say I was designing a logo for a spa, yeah? I am not going to say that I am designing for a spa, which is supposed to be relaxing and serene and all of these other beautiful, wonderful words. But I am putting a bulldog in the logo design. No, that does not say relaxing and serene to me. Or maybe I'm using like all of these loud, aggressive colors. And they're all just like screaming at me. When I look at it, it's just like, oh my lord. Like, there's just so much information in the logo. Like all of these overwhelming elements. That doesn't say relaxing and serene. That says confusion. And I don't want to go to a spa that's confusing because I'm trying to de-stress, you know what I mean? So everything in it needs to be appropriate and needs to align with what your business is about. Resizable. This is very important. There are some logos that when they are designed, they do not work past a certain capacity. So, and when even going to another level with this, yes, they need to be resizable, but at the same time, they need to be versatile. Let's look at the approach of merchandise. So I'm developing merch and I'm putting my logo on this merch. In black, it needs to be visible and strong. In white, it needs to be visible and strong. It needs to be visible and strong in any color. And so when you start to put all of these different colors into logos, and I'm not saying that they can't have multiple colors, because they can, but how does it read in grayscale? Let's say that I had a document and I needed it photocopied. If I put all of these different colors into this logo, when it is photocopied, it's not going to read properly, and now like that information is skewed. It is very important that a logo is able to be as visually impactful in black and white as it is in color. It is extremely important. It might not necessarily have the wow factor that it would have when it is in color, obviously, because colors are very bright and vivid. But I still need to be able to see the information. I still need to be able to see that this is created by Thalia in black, white, purple, green, like in any single color. So that if I'm applying it, let's say I'm applying it to a shirt, and let's say the shirt is black, then, and I need to only put it in white, I can still see the words. I can still see that this is created by Thalia. I'm applying it on a cap. I'm applying it because, like, realistically, like, when you're printing items, the more colors that you add to it, the more the cost goes up. So especially maybe in the beginning, you'll want to do a lot more of like the monochrome approaches to printing. Just a little aside, just a little input from us that print professionally. The more colors that you start to add into a design, the more the cost is going to go up. So even from a cost perspective, that you want to make sure that your logo permits you to still brand effectively, market effectively, and all of this, but still have that strong representation of your brand. All right, and then timeless, and this means that it has to be able to grow with your brand. It has to be adaptable to change. I mean, we go through change every single day. We see change every single day. Like, there's going to be that constant evolution of your business, and as a result, like, despite all the different things that happen, all the different products that you might add, you still want that your logo strongly represents your brand, strongly represents your identity. So this is definitely one of the ways that we can start to look at the impact of branding by making sure that we have like a really strong logo design. And then, like, as we were saying, like, logos are merely just graphic elements, but they are a piece of the brand that is used for visual communication. So they really, really, really need to be impactful to make sure that it is a strong representation of your business. So yeah, I think we touched a lot on just the whole concept of logos within itself. Like, if I recall, when I was in school, I had a teacher that would say just apply the KISS method. And if you spell out the entire acronym, it says keep it simple, stupid. But I'm gonna keep the stupid out. I'm gonna just keep it simple. But yeah, if not anything, make sure that you keep your design simple for your logo, because it definitely will go a long way in helping it to remain strong in people's minds and be aesthetically pleasing. Like, it will be applicable to so many different things if you keep it simple. All right, so beautiful. So the next thing that I kind of want to expand on a little bit more is just the whole concept of a brand. When you're building your brand, apart from the things that we spoke about, like how your brand is impacted from the business owner's perspective and from the audience perspective, like, some of the things that help you to identify your brand is like being fully aware of what you're selling and exploring that a little bit more. So when you identify what it is that you're trying to sell, now you're able to start to look into the ways that it can be marketed and that it can be conveyed to your consumer, so that your consumer is now attracted to what you're presented, and they're like, okay, you know what, I want to buy XYZ thing. I can tell that they're buying XYZ thing, and it aligns with me as a consumer. It aligns with my wants and my needs. Because okay, let me not generalize it. The majority of people buy things because they need it. I need clothes, so I'm gonna buy clothes. I need spoons, so I'm gonna buy spoons. Like, the average person is not just buying things for the sake of buying things. It has impacted them in one way or another, and they're like, okay, I need this. I'm buying this bouquet because I need a gift for my spouse. You know what I mean? Or I'm buying this self-care kit because I need some time to myself, and I may not be in a place to go to a spa right now, but your self-care kit has shown me that it's able to give me somewhat of a spa experience through the way that you have branded your company and you've marketed and conveyed this identity to me. And I am now convinced that I can buy this product and receive these results because everything that you have conveyed about your brand has shown me that you have the capacity to do so. That's the reality of the relationship that your brand does, like, to your audience and from you to your audience. And so we want to make sure that everything that we do reiterates this. So this now starts to expand into other different things. So if we even go back to that whole definition, of a brand and we start to look at it from the business owner's perspective. So remember, we said a brand encompasses the positioning, messages, and the communications, the visual design, the client, customer persona, the voice, the marketing and promotions, and the presence of the company. Now that was a mouthful, but you see how many different elements are comprised in this. So when we start to really look at the brand in its broader spectrum more, like we have to touch on each and everything to make sure that in every single aspect, from every single perspective, that strength of our business identity is conveyed. And when we combine that with the approach of kingdom, it is a case that from encountering my business, from encountering my brand, you can tell that we stand for this. This has this particular identity. It's the same way when we go back to that scripture about not being conformed to the things of this world. So we really have to make sure that we are set apart. And so it is a case that of even being clear as to what you stand for, so that when people come, let's say someone comes and asks me for a shirt that is extremely vulgar, because I have defined that my brand identity is in alignment with kingdom, I can easily say that's not something that I stand for, and I'm not going to do this thing because this is contrary to my beliefs, this is contrary to my business's policies. It is important to define these things at the beginning and make sure that we do everything possible to convey effectively, so that we don't end up with misrepresentation of ourselves and misrepresentation of Christ. Because as a kingdom business, you're not just showcasing what your business has, but you are a representation of Christ. And having such a strong mantle, it is so important to make sure that each and every element of your brand reiterates this. When Created first started, we knew what we were standing for. We made sure that that was conveyed in our core values, and our core values actually make it the acronym Thalia. I thank God for that concept, because it also makes it easy for me to remember when I am looking to develop something new, or working on a customer relationship or something like that. Remember that, okay, this is what Creative with Thalia stands for. It stands for thoughtful design. It stands for high-end products. It stands for authentic merchandise. It stands for love in every sketch. It stands for infinite solutions. It stands for accessibility. So like, I can right off the bat remember these things and make sure that I am conveying that in every interaction with every product that we make. You know, you want to make sure that there is that strong representation of what you stand for in every single thing that you do, in every single thing that is done by your company. And having that true understanding is what is going to get you there, to get you to the point to where you are able to convey this in everything that you do, whether it be in how you relate to other people, whether it be in your marketing approaches. Because I mean, we live in a digital age. We live in an age where having a strong social media presence is essential for the growth of your business. I'm not saying that is the only way to grow it, but it plays a key role. And so it even comes down to, am I using the right songs with the reels that I'm using to convey this bit? Like, I go through that battle of which song is too worldly to be used. Like I am going to avoid songs that have expletives in them. Or even if I do use a song that is a little bit more secular, like, I have to pay attention to the words. Because, like, you know, there is a trend in audio. So, like, not every single trend in audio would be like a Sarah Jakes Roberts audio, for example. and are like a Michael Todd one. Like, I remember when Girl Get Up was trending. I remember when Faith Talk was trending. Like, not every single trending audio would be as strong as that, and so there might be times that you end up using some of the other ones, but there's still the capacity to use those but not derail from your brand identity, because you can use the ones that have instrumentals and things like that. There's so many other different ones that can be used, but this all reiterates how important it is not to stray from that identity, and making sure that you communicate that and you convey that and everything. And so all in all, what my point is just when you are considering your brand and you are taking the kingdom perspective, make sure that it is reiterated in every single thing that you do, that everything about your business speaks, breathes kingdom, is a pure representation of Christ. So I think that's all I really have for today. We can definitely get into branding more, especially if you guys have any questions, that you can always reach out to us on our Instagram, or you can send us tweets, or you can send us an email, like, especially if you have a lot that you want to ask. Our email address is creatingalegacypodcast@gmail.com, and then of course we're on Instagram, and Instagram is Creating a Legacy Podcast. You can definitely follow us there. And then our Twitter is different. So our Twitter is the Autumn Legacy. Our Twitter is used for many things from the Autumn Legacy, but yeah, definitely check us out there as well. But it has been great talking to you about this. I thoroughly enjoy looking at this type of information, just looking at branding itself, just looking at the small business or the large business, just business. And it means so much that you guys take the time out to just discuss this information with us. So yeah, if there's any more that you want us to look at with regards to the brand identity, by all means just reach out. I mean, as we can tell when we looked at the definition of a brand, there's just so much that you can touch on, and it is hard for us to just cover everything in one podcast, and we don't want to overwhelm you with information either. Like, we want this to be beneficial, you know. So yeah, by all means, if there is more that you want clarification on from some of the things that we discussed today, by all means reach out and we'll definitely address them. But thank you so much for joining us for this episode. We hope that you have an amazing week. We are recording this on a Monday, and it will drop on Monday. Sometimes the YouTube version comes out a little later, depending on how much editing that we have to do. But please bear with us as we work through the little kinks of, making this as perfect as we possibly can for you. And let us know some of the things that you would want us to work on as well. Like, all feedback is good feedback. At the end of the day, we do want this podcast to get better. We're doing our best to add new things, to edit in different ways, keep it on different platforms, as many different things to make sure that it is the best quality for you. Because the same way as we were talking about brands today, this too is a means for us to convey our brand. Not only to convey the podcast as a singular entity, but as this is a component of Created by Thalia, to convey Created by Thalia as a brand. Alright, so the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance unto you and give you peace now and forevermore. God bless you guys. It means so much. I cannot put it in words how much it means that you guys join us on these episodes. But until the next one, I'll see you guys later. Bye.